Hi, this video will begin the process of discussing those key experiences of mine that cause me to shape my opinions, my thoughts, my actions, and so forth, that has gotten me to where I am today. And I think I mentioned earlier that I would not do a linear report on all of the things that I've experienced in my life, but would focus on key events that took place that caused me to come to the opinions I had and the kind of actions that I took along the way. And so, starting with this video will begin to focus on key points in my life that I wanted to share with you. But before starting that, I thought there were a few points that I needed to mention in order to get a little bit of an understanding of where this is heading and the reasons why I wanted to share this with you. Uh, the first one has to do with referring back to uh, that example of the tree of life and the two paths that I spoke of um, in earlier videos. Uh, I mentioned that there was this one path, which I called the path of God, that focused on those things that I wanted to identify, um, how they shaped my thoughts and so forth. And the two uh, inputs during that path were along that path were the physical environment itself and what it um, offered in terms of learning experiences and opportunities to understand this world that I found myself in, and whether or not I could identify and align with my true purpose that was uh, uh, the reason for my being here. And the other, and that's the physical environment, where also there's this spiritual uh, part of me that was also along this path that, although in the background and very important influence in my life, was not something that was readily available and open to presentation of how that affected my life at that point. But that was the path of God. The other path I mentioned was the path of man and its influence on, and all of the thoughts and opinions I had picked up that caused me to be who I am. And along that path, there were inputs, uh, naturally from the family unit, but also society, and then religious teachings and so forth that shaped uh, my opinions. And so my intent there was to be able to identify where a thought I had or a belief system I had or a way of living in this world, where it came from some source. And so even though that was it was a journey within my mind that I needed to get clarity on. And it was going to be an effort that was uh, time consuming and probably a lifetime of learning in order to be able to be clear on where all of that came from. So, um, just one of the points I wanted to make sure that I stress that that separation was driving all of these actions that you will see going forward, uh, in an effort to really understand myself and my belief system. The other point of view that I also wanted to point out was that I maybe took a different view of what history was and what it meant. And I um, had many discussions with my son about uh, his viewpoint of history versus mine. And it was a challenge because I understood the importance of history. I just did not understand it in reference to how much time I wanted to spend there in learning and understanding it versus living life today as uh, being able to create, uh, I would say, my own history. So we had a lot of discussions about that. So he took the view that I was dismissing history, and so I had a hard time trying to convince him I wasn't. What I was doing was saying history from the standpoint of man and his time on Earth uh, is was documented in certain uh, books, certain articles, and so forth that expressed man man's view of life, including religion and everything else. Uh, Man's view of life during that period of time. And so, for me, if I needed to or wanted to understand what uh, they were experiencing back then I would use history to be able to help me understand that. But the reason for it would be in order to better understand myself and the fact of living today, how that would help me to make the choices that I needed to make in current times. So that was my view of history, and by history I mean not only uh, the advancement of man on this earth, but also the advancement of religious understanding on this earth. Both were history reported by men of the time that tried to share what they understood and what they believed at that time. So I probably will get a little bit of pushback on including religion in that, but that's how I saw it. And today I still have that same opinion as to how I wanted to view history and in those areas. And that freed me up, at least I thought it did, to be able to focus on life today as I lived it and determine for myself whether or not um, it was in line with God's teachings. The other thing that I wanted to point out in this was a definition of the experiences I was going to have going forward and classifying them into three different areas. Uh, One was the experiences, what I term good good experiences that allowed me to enjoy life as it is and um, be able to have a feeling of being in line with and at peace with what I understood about life. And a part of and the majority of that really came from the path of God, and yet I didn't have a lot of experience in that because uh, most of my experiences had to do with the path of man. It's in the early beginning anyway, and along that path, I termed that there were bad experiences that I had to go through in order to understand how to survive them, how to deal with them, and overcome them in order to um, um, be able to achieve my purpose in life. And then there was this other category which was new to me, and I confess that um, I wasn't equipped for, but it came along later in life. In fact, the last 25 or 30 years of my life, and that's the experiences of evil. And up until that point, I I I thought more about the fact that the bad experiences I had really came from an understanding uh, of what man has introduced into this world and being able to deal with that. But this evil side, which um, I had never really experienced, I wasn't equipped really to do with it, but I found myself in it and had to uh, do a quick learning or education in terms of what it was all about and how to not only live with it but survive it. And that has been the biggest challenge for me over the last part of my life. And it actually still goes on today. And I don't know that I have been successful at it yet, but I do know now that it's there, and the experiences there will also are also a part of uh, what went into or goes into making me who I am today. And I wasn't going to focus on that part of my life going forward, thinking that that was just a personal experience that I needed to uh, keep to myself and be able to continue dealing with it. But now I know that it is something I do need to express because I don't know who else has gone through this same or similar process. But I'm hoping that not only my experiences will be of value, but I also know that the other experiences that I did run across in the same area have proven to be valuable to me. So that will be a part of this process going forward that I want to focus on and share with what my experiences were. But starting with this family unit that I was born into, it was within a family structure that was probably two generations away from the period of slavery and all that all of its influences. And as a result, from an educational standpoint, we were basically just beginning to uh, have access to a formal education, uh, especially with my parents and what was available to them, but it was limited in its opportunity or options. But it was being established at that point. And then for me, or it was, or my generation, it was a matter of beginning to accept it as a part of what was necessary in order for us to have at least a chance in this lifetime of improving our lot. But the other part of this period of time was the influence still of slavery and its impact on uh, our grandparents and their parents at that time that uh, was not coming from a standpoint of a lot of knowledge about how to handle this world of ours that we found ourselves in. And so what they passed on to me and my siblings was the best that they could, and primarily that was just survival. So they did not pass on a vision of what the possibilities were in this lifetime of ours, other than the vision of uh, what it was going to require or that what we needed just to survive. And so that they did because that's what they knew, but there was that was the focus that I was born into and was what was passed on to me at that time. Uh, there, as far as expectations, um, I don't think that I remember, at least for the family that I was born into, there was a lot of expectations that life could change or would change. But it was sort of an expectation that the things that we give you, you will be able to do the same things going forward. And as a result, um, it, there wasn't this, what we know today as all of these options and opportunities that were in front of us to to be able to deal with or choose from among those options the path that we wanted to follow. The one thing, though, that or the one area I think that was also passed along to us was a belief system that hard work um, would help us to survive in this world we find ourselves in. And so there was this dedication to manual labor and the efforts of that would um, at least give us a way of surviving. The other one was um, uh, the fact that we were introduced to religion and what it represented. And the belief system there was our rewards would be in heaven if we were good little kids, boys and girls, and that if we didn't uh, violate the laws that religion taught us, our rewards would be in heaven. But while we were on earth, that uh, we had to live a certain way in order to not offend not only God, our creator, but uh, the community and man that we found ourselves in. And so that was a belief system that was uh, reinforced every time we went to church and and all of the religious teachings that we got through that process. So this kind of was the family unit that that I was born into, and the fact that there wasn't this real vision for the future or an expectations that things were going to change, but that we were to live this life going forward just like our parents did and our grandparents did, and that was the expectations going forward. So uh, I, uh, that's kind of a snapshot of what uh, the family I was born into that was ahead also for me. Now, I will say during the same time period, there were other families born in the same location that probably had a different start for life than we did. For instance, there were a couple of status positions within our community that I thought might um, uh, be important to point out. The one is that uh, one of the visions we could have is to become a teacher because education was being presented more and more to us at that time. And the other one was to be a preacher, which preaches religion and the Word of God to us. And so some families took that route knowing that uh, they had the option of having a little better life than we did as a farming family and tied to those kind of things. So hopefully I did a good job or an okay job of describing the family unit that I was born into. And I want to cut this video here in order to um, kind of split the time and give us both a break in terms of what I'm trying to get across here. And so we'll pick the next video up with uh, the environment itself and how it played a part in my beginning this journey of mine. So I'll talk to you then.